www.yahellavoice.com.
You are listening to the show Imprints on Yahella Voice, sponsored by Al Nahda Community Center. At the mere age of 3, he started playing the oud, and the violin followed shortly after. He not only is a oud player and violinist, but he is also a composer, educator in the fine arts, and travels the world to give numerous lecture and workshop presentations. He is a cultivator and finds great joy in meshing cultures together through music. On April 2nd, Zafir Musical Winds from North Africa to Andalusia is coming to life at Moraine Valley Community College, and he is here to tell us all about it and his journey in the art of music. It is my pleasure to welcome Simon Shaheen to the show Imprints on Yahella Voice, sponsored by Al Nahda Center. How are you doing, Simon?
Hi, it's a pleasure to be with you.
The pleasure is all ours. Simon, I wanted to first talk about how you grew up. And I know that you grew up with a master of music, an educator and composer, your father. What role did he play in your journey in the arts?
Yeah, I grew up in the village of Tarshiha in Palestine, and surrounded by family who some of them were professional musicians and others musicians. My father was a music composer, oud player, and educator. I grew around him, just playing the oud, and a year later the violin. He introduced me to the best in traditional Arabic music. Also introduced me to Western classical music and other musical cultures, from India to Persia to West Africa, and you name it. So it was a very rich experience, and at the age of six and a half, while studying at the conservatory, at the same time, I was performing all over with him, with his ensemble. And I always wanted to play on his oud, which was way bigger than my body. So this was one of the most beautiful memories I had.
That's wonderful. And I know that also your siblings are well involved in music as well. If I'm not mistaken, your brothers are, and your sisters, they sing as well, correct?
Yeah, my brother Najib is an oud player, and he is also oud maker, one of the most accomplished oud makers today. And also my other brother, William, who is an optometrist in profession. He's also a oud player and violin player at the same time. My sisters, yes, they have beautiful voices, and they, they started again with the, around my father, the family. The church, it was part of it. Mm-hmm. And later my sister Laura took off, and she made it into a career as a singer, especially here in the United States. But then due to a health issue, she had to stop. But yes, they are very good musicians.
That's wonderful. You're basically born into a family that definitely appreciates the arts and is able to do so much, which is wonderful. And as you mentioned, you were born in Tarshiha, Palestine, and tell us a little background about this village. Now, are there several individuals that are involved in music in that village?
Whenever I tour in the Arab world, I talk about the musical scene in the village of Tarshiha, that despite the small number of the villagers, which is 2,000 people, mm-hmm. there are enough musicians to that I go to Beirut, to Cairo, to Tunisia, and they challenge the musical scenes there. Let's put it this way. So I don't know what it is about. Of course, my father is a big part of it. He started this trend a long time ago. My grandfather, Najib, was also, beside his profession, he was a musician also, played the oud and the singer and the deacon. So they started this notion of music performance, music education, celebrate, using the celebration, the seasons for celebrations. And, the workshops, I remember my father always had workshops over the weekends, 2 or 3 days, and musicians, young musicians came from all over, not only from Tarshiha, but from the whole gallery. They came to study music, and they ate with us. Some of them slept in our house. This is how it used to be.
That's wonderful.
So, the musical scene in Tarshiha is very rich, and they have now 2 fantastic ensembles with chorus, and they perform. I just met with them during my trip, like 10 days ago, and I'm really proud of what they're doing.
So tell me a little bit about the first time you were on stage, and what was it for, and how many individuals you played with?
The first time I was on the stage, it was a concert in a concert hall at the city of Akka, which is, I would say, like 20 minutes from the village of Tarshiha. And Akka is situated on the Mediterranean, one of the oldest cities in the world. So we performed with my father's ensemble, and I remember I didn't perform the whole performance, but I used to go up on the stage and play a segment, let's say, between 7 to 10 minutes, where the ensemble would play a piece of music, me on the oud, and then everybody comes to a stop, and I do an improvisation.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, this was, I think, at the age of 5 or 5.5. People, the crowd was probably 1,500 or 1,600 people. So from then, it became a trend to perform for the next 2-3 years, those 10 minutes in each performance. And then I joined ensemble and performed, and later, age of 14, 15, I directed it. I worked with them, and this gave me a fantastic experience. To stage performance, not to be afraid of performance, and enjoy it, and have it big part of my life.
And you had your start at a very young age, so that definitely allowed you to invest more in music, and as you said, be able to be comfortable on stage, and not have a fear of that as you're getting older. Is that correct?
Yes, 100%.
So I want to know how you connect with the oud and the violin, and why did you choose oud and violin as opposed to any other musical instrument?
I guess the oud because I loved it, by nature and genetically, probably, I don't know. My father was an oud player and one of the most accomplished oud players in the Arab world at the time. So it was naturally I picked up on the instrument. And, he asked the oud maker to make me a special oud, which was a small size with a longer neck, so I can, hold it and play on it. And this oud now today is at the Arab Museum in Dearborn.
Oh, wonderful! That's
very.
Is it like cased away for everyone to see?
Oh yeah.
Wow!
On the it's presented there. You can see it with some pictures and some history about me and my biography and all the 9 yards. So it is there. So I played the oud. This is how I started, just by experiencing and living with my father and experience his playing and watch him how he does it. And I didn't take lessons per se, but living the experience was the greatest lesson for me. And a year later, I picked up on the violin because I have a cousin also. His name is George Shaheen, who played the violin, and he was part of the scenery there in the village. Very accomplished violin player. So he tried with me, you know. He gave me like a quarter-size violin, and I started to play on it. And, you know, for 5-6 months, he gave me some lessons, and then I joined the conservatory.
It's very interesting to see.
Why I did the two instruments, I think I was infatuated with both, and I didn't find a preference between the oud and the violin, and therefore I'm still playing it.
So would you say that these two instruments are similar in a way, or do they differ more?
No, they are not similar at all. They are very different. I mean, one is a plucked instrument that you hold down, you know, as like the guitar, and the violin is a violin. It's a bowed instrument. So, I mean, technically speaking, these are two very different instruments. But musically speaking, they feed into each other, let's put it this way.
So it's very interesting to see that you were once a student and you had individuals mentoring you, and now you are teaching students. So tell us a little bit about your teaching to the students and the individuals that are part of your ensemble as well.
I teach individually, and I teach in Boston at Berklee College of Music. And at Berklee, I have the full-time job there and my own institute, which called the Institute for Microtonal Music. And you know, we have American students, European students, South American, and I encourage students to come from the Middle East to Berklee to study there. And therefore, we started to we go to the Middle East and we audition students in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Egypt. And we have a good number now. We have over 25 Arab students at Berklee.
That's great.
So this is a great thing. Individually, I teach whenever I have the time in New York, in my place. I have some fantastic individual students who still, you know, they have been with me for 5 or 6 or even more years. So I do that. And, you know, when we tour, sometimes I tour as a trio or quartet or with the whole ensemble. Like when I come to Moraine Valley College, Community College, we're coming as nine musicians, bigger ensemble. So I always care to keep, you know, some space for workshops, master classes, community, you know, events, visiting community centers, and even as far as visiting hospitals and do what I call bedside performances.
Oh, that's very interesting.
That, yes.
So do individuals ask you to go in and do that, or how is that arranged, or who do you play for?
You know, I have a manager, and whenever we go to Performing Arts Center to perform, the Performing Arts Centers in America, they are very well connected to the communities, as you know. And, you know, I suggest that it's part of my contract. If you are connected to a hospital and would like it to make a visit, I'm more than happy to do so. And many of the performing arts centers, they pick up on this aspect, because it's very unique to
It
go
is.
to a
It is very
hospital and
unique. I
visit,
honestly, I've never heard of that. That's why I'm very surprised. And I think that's wonderful because those that are, ill or not feeling well, they hear music and they're able to have a smile on their face and feel as if they're kind of alive in the moment. So that's wonderful.
That's the best way to describe it. I cannot beat you, Nasreen.
Honestly, I'm surprised and I'm pleasantly surprised because I don't hear of that much. So I'm very infatuated by that. I think that if we have a lot more of that, a lot of individuals that are ill in the hospital, they would be feeling a lot better and happier, despite what they're going through. Yeah,
Definitely.
So I know that we've been speaking a lot about you playing the oud and the violin, but I don't think that my words will do justice. So I want our listeners to take a listen to this clip of Simone Shaheen playing the oud, and we'll be right back. And we're back on the show, Imprint on Yehla Voice. You're listening to us on our website, www.yehlavoice.com. And our interview today is with Simone Shaheen. Simone, welcome back to the show.
Yeah.
Simone, I want you to kind of tell us what made you take the step from living and establishing yourself in an Arab country to coming to America.
After I finished high school, I wanted to continue my music studies. And then I came to New York to Manhattan School of Music, which is one of the greatest music schools in the world today. And I finished my undergraduate and master's there in performance and composition. And then across the street from Manhattan School of Music, there is a fantastic institution called Columbia University. This is where I continued my studies, my higher studies, and concentrated on music education and cross with musicology. Because, this were my intention to continue my studies. And I chose New York simply because New York was a great scene of the musical fusion where musicians came from all over the world, or they lived here. Great musicians live in New York. And they created a scene that doesn't exist or didn't exist at that time in any part of the world. So this was very interesting scene to me. And the fact that I grew up with so many different musical backgrounds, from Western classical to Arabic traditional to Indian, African, West African, and some of the music of South America, which we hear in some Arab musicians adopted
Yes.
the rhythms and musical styles of South America, and they use it in the film music like Farid Al-Atrash, Muhammad Abdul Wahab,
Yes.
Muhammad Fawzi, as you know. So I grew up with all this background, and it was natural for me to be in this kind of environment where I blend with other cultures and maybe create a new genre of music. And this is what I did in New York. So I studied at the same time I started performing at a time where there was no presentation of Arab music at all in America. The only presentation was the music of the nightclub
Okay.
and as you know, the belly dance scene.
Yes.
But there was no presentation of Arab music in the performance centers, on the stage, at colleges, at universities, none at all. And this was the one thing that I wanted to pursue, and reach the performing arts centers and the colleges and the universities, and even regular schools. I remember in 1984, I started something called Arts Connection in New York with two other musicians, American musicians. And the purpose of Arts Connection was to take music from different other cultures, like Arabic music, like Indian music, like Swahilian music, Japanese music, whatever, to take it to the schools.
Sure.
And introduce it in assemblies to the schools where you have 400, 500, 600 students in a hall sitting and listening to new music and listening about the new culture.
Yes.
So this was very enriching and a great experience. And little by little, all these years, performing at our best, creating the Kantara Music Ensemble and the Near Eastern Music Ensemble, we succeeded to perform in many music halls in the United States, performing arts centers,
Yes.
and enhance the Arab music image and introduce the Americans to its best, in performance, in workshops, in master classes, in residencies, you name it.
And Simon, music is beautiful and lighthearted. And it fills a gap between different cultures and countries in the world, as you've said now. And I'm sure that you've played with individuals with all sorts of backgrounds. I want you to tell us a little bit about how this plays a role in building bonds. I always say that the two things you can't go wrong with is music and food. Two social things that bring people together. So I want you to tell us about how it plays a role in building bonds.
There is two sides, two sides of the coin here that we can discuss. First of all, to perform the traditional music of any culture as pure as possible is definitely something that people would love to listen to and would love to experience. But sometimes people would feel more in ease listening, let's say, the oud, while they see that the oud can produce the Arabic sound, and at the same time it has other potentials, like performing with flamenco guitarists,
Yes.
performing with the symphony orchestra, like Concerto for Oud, and bringing some technical aspects of the instruments that we never heard or people don't hear in the traditional sense. So this is very interesting, and this is what prompted me to start the Kantara Music Ensemble that include some of the greatest musicians in the world, like Billy Drews on the saxophone,
Yes.
Bassam Saba on the nai and the flute, like Adam Rogers on the guitar, Jamie Haddad, who's American from Cleveland, but of Lebanese origin, is definitely the premier percussionist in the world,
Yes.
who now is touring with Paul Simon. So, Ben Street, bass player. This kind of musicians, they are, great musicians, and they're on their own right. But at the same time, when we play together as a contra group, and I compose, you will hear the Arab music as a foundation, but then you will hear also the jazzy structure, if you will,
Yes.
from the American jazz music. You will hear the Western classical style infused in the performance. You will hear some unique rhythmic rhythms from different parts of the world. In one piece, you might hear also some rhythms from Latin America infused in the mix. So this is a difficult thing to do, to succeed, to bring different music styles and different instrumentation into one work or one composition, and it requires a great deal of awareness on the part of the composer. But at the same time, if it succeeded and sound organic, then it's fantastic experience for the listener, for the people, especially the Americans. It's like introducing Arabic music infused with other music styles, which will make it for their ear a little more acceptable or easier to hear, if you will. So this was part of this was part of my way of bringing all these styles together. I didn't plan this as if I'm saying, okay, I want to reach the American audience and it will be easier. No, it was a very original attempt. But at the same time, it reached a huge crowd. I remember when we used to play for 50 or 60 people in the beginning of the 80s, and the World Music Institute in New York.
Yes.
I remember they introduced me in a concert in New York in 1981. It's a fact that there were 50 people. Last week I played at Town Hall, the concert that was also produced by the World Music Institute, and we had a full house of 1,900 people.
Wow, what an accomplishment!
So it is a testament. It represents the hard work and this voyage, if you will, that myself with other musicians and the educational process and reaching out, it paid dividends, and our crowd is all over the United States.
Sure, and of course the dedication that you have to the arts is just impeccable. And I want to talk about Saturday, April 2nd. Now, Zafir is coming to Moraine Valley Community College. Tell us about Zafir and how that started.
Zafir is... the word Zafir, also we have it as Zephyr. Americans can find it as Zephyr, Z-E-P-H. And basically Zafir is the breath that, comes out of our body. And it's at the same time the winds that travel between west and east, east and west.
And I was actually also going to ask you what made you come up with that name, because I know that the word Zafir means exhale in English, but I didn't know what the background was about that word.
Yeah, but the background is the winds that that travels from east to the west. And I found this word to be interesting and kind of. It reflects on this mixture and fusion of that's happening in our time now, and bringing music all the way from Egypt through North Africa to Spain, And let's not forget about this fantastic collaboration between Arabs and Spaniards during the Andalusian period. And Arab music was presented in Spain or in Andalusia in the beginning of the 8th century. And many European musicians came to study this music. Mm-hmm. In fact, they started the first two conservatories in Europe, one in Sevilla, one in Cordoba, when there was no music schools at all. Yes. So, from that, there were many musical genres that were created or influenced by the Arab music, including the traditional Spanish flamenco. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I'm including in the Zafir a kind of music that is known in North Africa, especially in the Arab countries in North Africa, that was influenced by flamenco, and also Spanish flamenco music that very much influenced by Arabic music. Uh-huh. And in the performance, we show the connection. We hear a lot about people taking the privilege to say, flamenco music is Arabic music, but how? Mm-hmm. I mean, a performance, maybe a pre-concert lecture will clarify this issue.
Sure.
And we make the connection there. And therefore, I'm bringing also a guitar player who's also a singer and a piano player, Juan Perez Rodriguez, mm-hmm. Who will be performing with us, and also a flamenco dancer, Ausi Fernandez, who is considered today the top 3 flamenco dancers in the world, and especially in Spain.
Now, do you usually do this mesh?
Excuse me?
Do you usually do this mesh with a flamenco dancer and the music, or is this something new?
No, I do this. I have been doing this. Mm-hmm. I mean, I performed, we did performances in the past, Arabic and Spanish flamenco, mm-hmm. oud and guitar, in Chicago, in fact, at the Millennium Park. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember, like 4 years ago, I did a performance with Gerardo Nunez.
Oh, yes.
The most accomplished guitar player after in Spain.
And then there was a flamenco dancer as well.
And there was a dancer there, and I played both the oud and the violin. And, we shared the stage, and it was a fantastic experience. And the response of the people was magnificent. So, Juan is a musician who also studied with me at Berkeley, but he comes from a family like me, exactly. Mm-hmm. He grew up in a family of traditional flamenco musicians, uh-huh. singers, dancers, and guitar players. So we have much in common. And Ausi, I met with her in New York like a few years ago, and very, very interesting dancer. And not only she does the flamenco, but she does contemporary dance and so many other styles. This combination is very, again, it's challenging, but at the same time, it shows the roots of flamenco in Arabic music. Mm-hmm. And vice versa, it shows how flamenco also in the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century, also influenced Arab music, especially music in the films. Mm-hmm. And many composers, as I said, like Farid al-Atrash or Muhammad Abdul Wahab and others, had, this flamenco feel in their own music. And sometimes you hear the castañetas in their music. So this is a great experience, and we are bringing it on a tour. We just came back from Europe and the Middle East, and in Palestine we performed with the same group, and in Athens, in southern France, in Qatar, and so I think it would be refreshing to perform also in the Chicago area.
Wonderful. And, I know I'm excited. I honestly cannot wait for the second, because I know that we are going to get a wonderful performance. As you mentioned, you're bringing the Middle East, Spanish music, as well as North African cities such as the Maghreb, Jazair, and Tunis all together.
Tunis.
In one location, so this is interesting, and we're going to have a flamenco dancer as well. I definitely urge all of our listeners to make it out there. Again, it's taking place at Moraine Valley Community College at the Dorothy Menker Theater. Tickets are $30. You can purchase tickets by going onto the website morainevalley.edu. Definitely make your way out there. I know I'll be there. Simone, honestly, I really cannot wait to see you perform live. I know that I've been listening to you on YouTube, and I know many of our listeners have too, but that chance to see you perform live will be impeccable.
Thank you so much for the interview.
No, it's my pleasure. Honestly, Simone, the passion you have while playing the oud and the violin keeps your audience on the edge of their seats, and I truly appreciate that type of passion.
Thank you so much.
Well, Simone, it was a pleasure having you on the show Imprints on Yahala Voice on our website, www.yahalavoice.com. Inshallah, maybe one time when you're here in Chicago and you have some extra time, we can invite you into the studio, have you play some oud or violin for us and our listeners. We would love that.
Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Once more, you're listening to the show Imprints on Yahala Voice, sponsored by Al Nahda Center. We're going to leave you off with a short clip of Simone Shaheen playing the violin, and I hope all of you have a great evening. You were listening to the show Imprints on Yahala Voice, sponsored by Al Nahda Center at www.yahalavoice.com. Once more, I'm your host, Nisreen Balut. Have a good evening, everyone.
Listen to the radio, listen to
Yahala Voice.